of Reddit who have lived a double life. How did you get there, and what happened? Story 1 in Japan. Heart surgeon. Number 1. Steady hand. One day, Yakuza boss need new heart. I do operation, but mistake. Yakuza boss die. Yakuza very mad. I hide in fishing boat. Come to America. No English, no food, no money. Daryl give me job. Now I have house, American car, and new woman. Daryl save life. My big secret, I kill Yakuza boss on purpose. I good surgeon the best. Story 2, I have a name that's unpronounceable to most Americans. In elementary school, instead of listening to them mangle my name, I decided to choose a random English name to go by while in the States. Quite a lot of foreigners do this. A year came and went, and now I was in a new class with new teachers and new classmates. I decided on a whim to choose a different name to go by that year. I've been doing it every time I'm in a new social circle since then. I can tell when and where I met someone by what they call me. Story 3, major throw away, ACCT. I have a wife and 2 teenage kids, and 200 miles away. I have a long-term girlfriend and 2 toddlers. I have a job that pays me more than either know about. I support both families, but both mothers work, and the girlfriend takes care of the medical with those kids. My work legitimately has me travel all over the area a lot, and I've been balancing this for almost 5 years. Edit yes, Reddit I know. I am APOS, and I should die. Additionally, I know I'm setting my kids up for major trust issues. Try not to get so worked up about my life or lives as it may be, and worry more about your own. I will continue to love my kids, even if they choose to hate me and wish painful death on me one day. I will continue to be as good as a father as possible given my situation. I will continue to live my life, and maybe one day you'll come back with this as how it ended story. Story 4, about 14 years ago, after I just graduated college, I got a job teaching at a middle school, but I was still DJing nights and goth industrial nightclub. Teacher by day, rivethead DJ by night. That's about as double life as I have ever been. It didn't last, though. I was having a hard time staying alert and awake at school. So I gave up the teaching. Story 5, I am the heir to one of the biggest fortunes in Asia. I live poor in a project housing in Queens, New York. Edit comment below. I'll answer your questions, but please read this first. Story 6 in English, but have spent much of my youth in the U.S. and live here now with a green card. When I worked retail, I adopted an American accent because it's more efficient than having to explain to everyone that I'm English and moved here when I was 14, etc., etc. It was just more efficient. This continued in office jobs until we were in a meeting with some English clients who spoke first. I immediately went English. My boss looks at me for a second, stops the meeting, and says, "Are you having a stroke?" Then I had to explain, and we wasted half an hour, sigh. Story 7, my buddies Jim and Max, and I went out on this epic bike trip, 1,500 miles around VT and Maine and stuff. We're at a bar in Burlington, and my buddy Jim becomes the Canadian. He came up with it a month prior. He pretends he's from Montreal and only speaks French, but he has enough broken English to get by. So held chained together nonsense and tiny phrases in a French-Canadian accent. Kids love it. Anyways, we're at a bar, and Jim is bumbling out I am from Canada, Montreal, Quebec, and a French-Canadian turns around at the table next to us. You're from Montreal. Bonjour speaks several French sentences. It was incredibly funny watching him fess up. The actual Canadian was legitimately confused for a beat because his English wasn't so good. We actually ended up drinking with that Canadian dude all night. Story 8, throwaway account, obviously. I lived a seemingly normal life in Florida. I traveled a lot for work, so it wasn't uncommon for me to up and vanish for a few days at a time. What no one knew was that I was actually delivering several bales of some very potent marijuana up to Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore, New York, etc. I did it once on a whim and got addicted to the rush and the money. Over the span of 12 years, I made 27 round trips and never once dealt with a cop. I drove a nondescript Chevy Cavalier that I put patriotic bumper stickers on, kept my hair short and face shaved, wore polo shirts and Dockers, and never ever exceeded the speed limit. I looked like the thousands of other young professionals headed to work or a meeting or something, so I never gave cops a reason to profile me. I was the last kind of person they were looking to pull over. I'd go to the arranged meeting place, receive a brown paper bag with cash in it, then leave my car unlocked and go grab a burger or just walk around Walmart for an hour or so. When ID come back, the bales and the people who took them were long gone. Since I couldn't keep depositing large amount of cash in my bank, I'd have thousands of dollars in fake soup cans in my pantry and in my sock drawer. Since no one knew how much I made from my legitimate job, I was able to spend freely and had every game console and movie I wanted. I only quit when I met the woman I eventually married, and couldn't keep up the ruse of just heading out of town on moment's notice. It took some time getting used to being frugal again and not eating steak for dinner 3 times a week. Only 2 people know what I used to do, but I'm not worried about them talking. One has been charged with perjury before, so his word isn't worth to the authorities, and I have so much dirt and proof of it on the other, I could get him sent to prison for a long time. And he knows it. TLDR, I used to smuggle pot from Florida to the Northeast under the guise of going out of town for work. Story 9. In high school, I was a really hardworking student who would always try his best to get an A and be nice to other people. Well, in college, all of that changed. I was tired of being a nice guy and tired of spending all of my time reading and studying. I wanted to be someone to walk down the street and people yelling an inside joke to me, which I responded with another witty comment to make them all laugh. I was in out-of-state college, so I knew no one would recognize me. Towards the end of my senior year, I took some improv classes and joined comedy clubs at my school to try to be a funnier and more outgoing guy. It turned from me studying English match, etc., to me studying comedy and testing myself to be more outgoing. My first day of class, I was extremely nervous, but tried to just keep cool. I really didn't say much, but at the end of class, went outside and kind of joked around for a couple of minutes with some of the people. They laughed a bit, and it was pretty fun, although it was still really nothing I felt accomplished. My behavior like this continued all throughout college, getting invited to parties, having one-night stands, and just being that fun kind of guy. Though the partying got bad, I was nonstop missing classes, and my grades really fell because of it. By my junior year, I reached rock bottom and failed every single one of my classes. Though somehow I was in a way oblivious to what was going on. Somehow, I just didn't care what I worked so hard to achieve and just let all my accomplishments become nothing. I was no longer a student. I turned into a drug addict, alcoholic, who would have to text 50 different people each day to see who I could stay with that night. I realized this needed to change, and slowly it did. It was really hard, but I soon became my old self again, and I am now one semester away from being finished with my degree in law. I still see some of my party friends time to time, and I am just thankful I realized when I needed to quit and take responsibility. I now can't be happier because I have an awesome girlfriend, a great job, and a promising future. Story 10. By day, cheerful, sweet science teacher. By night, kinky erotic fiction writer of such work-safe topics as BDSM and pegging. Hey, I know it's not having a whole other family or anything, but I'd be screwed if work found out. Story 11. Not me. My father, during the Great Depression, my grandfather was injured at his job and couldn't work for a year. To keep the family going, my then 12-year-old father and his older brother dropped out of school and ran change raising scams on shopkeepers in Cleveland, Ohio for money, pretty much as the family's only income. My grandparents knew about it, didn't approve, but didn't stop them either. It's just what kept food on the table in tough times. After a year, Grandpa went back to work, and my dad and uncle went back to school, and to just being regular kids again. Change raising is a generic term for several variations for scamming a cashier while they're giving you your change from whatever purchase you just made. There are all various cover stories for getting the cashier to combine several change-giving transactions at the same time, and the cashier ultimately ends up giving you too much change for your purchase. The scammer ends up with both the item and some extra cash. When it's done, well, the cashier won't even know it happened. My father taught me how to do several variations of it, including one that is still probably not well known. He showed it to me with me as the cashier, and even knowing it was going to happen, he still had to slow down and explain to me where the mistake occurs. With the right person doing it, it's slick. Story 12. I failed out of college at 18. Went back at 22. One semester short of graduating, and I fail out again. Don't really want to tell my friends and family I screwed the pooch twice, so I continue my last semester as though everything was great. Even convinced my parents that walking the line was stupid and would take 5 hours to complete. They bought it, so now that I have my degree, I begin searching for jobs like any normal college graduate, applying for jobs, and really can't put down on applications that I have a degree, because, well, I don't. This entire time, from my second fail out, all I do every day is try and keep up with the lies and stories I've told to all the curious family and friends. I finally have to make up a job that I'm going to every morning, because why shouldn't a smart, hard-working, college-educated young man not have a job, right? Eventually it all came falling down on me, and the truth was revealed about my web of lies and deceit. Other than losing the trust of those closest to me, the weight of the world was lifted from my mind as I was able to go back to living one honest life. And not 2 lives of lies. Sorry for not being very interesting. It's the closest thing I have. Story 13. In high school, I was the quiet, nerdy guy, glasses, shaggy hair, always had a book in my hands. And then I went home, I would change clothes, put in contacts, grab my equipment, and was by night one of the major players in the DJ scene where I lived. It was at the point I would run into people from school, and they wouldn't recognize me. Both were my real life, and both were who I really loved to be, each in their respective venues. Story 14, not technically a double life, but more of a secret past. I was raised into the family business, which was riddled with crime and violence. I never wanted to be a part of it, but didn't really have a choice. My father expected me to get a high school diploma or a GED, and then commit myself to the business full-time. Instead, I opted to go to college. There was a major falling out where my father and I barely spoke for 2 years, and then didn't speak at all for the last 2 years of college. Though it wasn't exactly a double life, I never told my friends or my girlfriend who I plan on proposing to about my past. I sold myself as some normal guy, but I'd actually done some pretty violent and illegal things by the time I entered college. After college, I fell back into that same life and fell even deeper into it, eventually culminating in addiction. After a few years of being clean more or less, I left the life again, and once again, set up with someone without telling her anything about my past. We broke up though, and I'm once more caught up in this life. Story 15. In high school, I would pretend to be a different person anytime I was out with friends. I had a different name, an accent, and a totally different personality. I don't mean that my friends didn't know that I was doing it, because they did. It was a game to them, but I'd been doing far before I met them. I did this from the 6th grade to 12th grade. I had a phone app, so people could text me if I met them while I was not me. There were people who I knew for years who had no idea that I wasn't some Australian kid. I just want to say that I'm open to any questions. Some I might not be able to answer, but you can feel free to ask Reddit too. Since people are commenting and reading this, it is also relevant to say that the person that I pretended to be was a male. I am female. I am not an ugly person, at least it doesn't seem that way. But I have been called attractive and got a lot of numbers when I was male and have had the same reaction from people when I am myself. I have no gender issues. I just wanted to be as far away from myself as possible. But it turned out I could look like a boy if I wanted. Story 16. Throwaway here. I have a wife and 5-year-old child in another country. I send money home and speak to my daughter every 2 weeks. I have a significant other and a 6-month-old where I currently live. Story 17. Well, there was a support group for men with testicular cancer. The big mussy slobbering all over me was Bob. Bob had, wait, back up, let me start earlier. Story 18. In high school, this one is only okay. I was an okay student who did a bunch of nerdy stuff. I played the French horn. I won a pretty significant statewide artistic award. I read The Economist. I also was a ridiculous alcoholic drug addict who would take trips to Seattle on the weekend to smoke pot, drop acid, eat ecstasy, and snort cocaine and party with ballerinas. I also sold weed, mushrooms, LSD, and ecstasy, though mainly just pot. My party buddy even got into a high-speed chase with the police, among other car-related incidents. God, my party buddy was a bad driver. Side note, I'm no longer a drug addict, still a high flyer in every other way. Story 19. My best friend's boyfriend is literally and has 2 older brothers. Their father is married to another woman with 3 more children, and they have no idea about this family. His dad visits them every so often and gives them money. Story 20. I work in Midtown Manhattan for a luxury fashion company. I'm homeless. I shower at the gym and then go back to the office and sleep. Only the cleaning lady knows I am there so late. The security guard think I'm a workaholic. I make okay money, but I don't have a home. Story 21. My college friends are the only ones who know about my 4 years run of cocaine and loose women. As far as my friend from home know, I'm a drug-free, hopeless romantic. Story 22. I grew up in a Roman Catholic home with a very close-knit family, sitting and eating dinner every night, talking hours on end about our days, friends, plans, anything, while also running a cannabis distribution ring. At my peak, I had about 15 people working for me, having multiple pounds of marijuana in the house. At the same time, while my parents roamed around completely blind to what I was doing, this entire time, I had never touched a drug, no weed, no cigarettes, no alcohol. I did this from grade 10 until I graduated. I had a 95 average in sciences and math graduating high school and played on a number of sport teams whose players bought from people who worked for me. But they never had any idea. My best friends who I'd hang out with every weekend didn't know until I told them after I'd gotten out. I realized that once I turned 18, I could get into some serious trouble and got out about a month before it. I would get an inside scoop on everything because of my affiliations to the sports teams and my administration roles in student council. Often hearing things about the people who worked for me and what they did or who they up. Story 23. While I have 3 aliases growing up, I was poor, so I made connections with friends and family who sold drugs and other legal things. They call me a certain name. At work, I go by my government name, and everything is perfectly fine. It helps that I deleted Facebook, and I can't be looked up on a whim. Also, I'm married women. I'm a bull in several cuckold relationships where I engage in all sorts of acts that I wouldn't want to be made public. I give those couples a name, and I save their contracts on my phone under local businesses. Also, when I get drunk and turn up, I have an alert ego, someone I can blame my drunk mistakes on. Story 24. I was 24 and worked at a very large corporate casino with my roommate and a few very close friends. I began secretly seeing my 40-year-old boss against company policy. We saw each other for about a year and a half. It was awful having to lie to my friends about who I was staying with some nights, dating, etc. For fear of losing our jobs, we kept the secret. It was so hard. I didn't even realize until the relationship was over that I was leading a double life. Although he was a great guy. It was relieving when it ended, so I didn't have to lie anymore. Story 25, am what I jokingly refer to as a D-list YouTube celebrity. Not famous by any means, but every so often people will recognize me, or it'll be in a video that will make the rounds on popular blogs. But many of my friends aren't in the entertainment industry, so they're completely shocked when worlds collide. In college, it was especially funny. I worked for a pretty big YouTube channel, barely political, the key of awesome for you YouTube fans out there, and acted in a bunch of their videos. When people asked where I worked, I usually just said I worked for a production company, because unless they were really into YouTube, they wouldn't understand my job weight. You can make money off YouTube. A lot of my friends didn't even really care what I did. But every so often a video I was in would go viral in ID, have people coming up to me in classes like, "Did I just see you on Perez?" I once went to a YouTube event with a friend, and she was shocked and could not stop laughing when I was mobbed by a bunch of eager 10-year-olds wanting autographs. Even though I don't work at Key of Awesome anymore, it'll still get recognized sometimes. Just 2 weeks ago, I was at dinner with a friend, and a nervous mom approached me and asked if I could take a photo with her daughter, since her daughter was a huge fan. My friend was watching like, "How come you never told me you were famous? And if you're famous, why aren't you rich enough to cover my meal outside of YouTube world? I work odd jobs in production, do the whole struggling actor thing in LA." A lot of the friends I've made out here moved here from New York about 9 months ago aren't in the industry. So I usually just say I have a background in comedy and production. And so the cycle is basically repeating itself when they see me on YouTube. I had a coworker at one of my production jobs come up to me the other day like so. My friend said, "There was this really funny YouTube parody I needed to watch. Anything you want to explain before I continue? It's fun. TLDR, I'm basically a YouTube Hannah Montana, or should I say, Lord, that is me." Story 26 from my sophomore year in high school, living in a not-so-popular town in Texas. I was signed with a professional modeling agency in New York City. Every break I had from school was spent living in a model's apartment with different women from around the world, and we would all go to castings that the agency sent us to. No one at school knew anything up until my junior year, when I was published in popular magazines that were distributed across the country. At home in school, I was nerdy and shy, but I was totally confident and outgoing while working as a professional model. Also by professional model, I mean by the fashion industry standard. Story 27, well, once I get back into my career again, aging parents with health issues, ARG, I will probably go back to being an engineer by day, fire performance circus freak by night. Whoever said it was a bad thing to run away and join the circus was wrong, has no idea how awesome it can be. Every day, I don my business casual, and when I get home, I spend my free time working on my choreography, costuming, and body paint ideas. And I get to tell people I have a literal license to burn. And I get to light myself on fire for public displays of awesome. And in the morning, I go back to work saving lives by improving the designs of medical devices. TLDR, it's never safe to assume that the Saturday night sword swallower at the bar doesn't have a much more professional job than you do come Monday. Story 28, throwaway account. Avi, am a well-educated, upper-middle-class person of the female persuasion. After college, I found myself very broke, and living in New York City, I was not making ends meet with my day job in a very popular cupcake bakery, so I decided to get creative. Through internet sleuthing, I found an opening for a professional dominatrix in a SM dungeon. I applied, learned the ropes har, and got the job. By day, I sold adorable cupcakes. By night, I beat men up while wearing black latex. Also made rent. Story 29, I have schizophrenia and Tourette's. Some people at work only know that I have Tourette's. My first life is that of a hard-working chemist, a lab technician, really. But my degree is in chemistry. My second life is that of a self-proclaimed prolific underground artist. Here is my webcomic, Woo Poo Poo. How my friends have helped and will help write this comic. I started this project called Drunk Mickey back in June 2009. In what should have been my final summer semesters at university, I was undiagnosed with Tourette's. I was ashamed to see my friends and even attend class. I was living in my car for those roughly 3 weeks. I would get drunk before class as self-medication. The drinking prevented me from acting out and having motor vocal tics. It was unimaginably embarrassing to see classmates during lecture turn their heads out of disgust, understanding being upset. Believe me, I didn't want to make those tics. Anyway, yeah, Drunk Mickey, I would drink a minimum of 2 shots and draw pictures of Mickey Mouse on a bar napkins. I have to have at least 2 beers or 2 shots or 2 whatever alcohol. Drunk Mickey is a 2-drink minimum. I did Drunk Mickeys from 2009 to about really early 2011. However, I started up again about 2 weeks ago since I drink too much anyway. My therapist told me I needed to stop doing Drunk Mickey and do a Sober Mickey, which is my webcomic, Mr. Face. There's a huge story about Mr. Face itself, but I want to focus on Drunk Mickey. Every Drunk Mickey I draw is open source. I sometimes steal styles from other artists, but I expect others to do the same with my. Here are most of my Drunk Mickeys from a few years back. A lot of my Drunk Mickeys were stolen when the police raided my room in March 2011 in Pilsen, Chicago, USA. They were stolen either by my roommate or the police. I was batshit crazy with schizophrenic writings on the wall, a hole punched through my door, and 6 marijuana plants growing in my closet. Hey Race, most of my Mr. Face Comics friends help write them too. I'm not the only person that writes for this comic. A lot of those Mr. Faces will never be used because they are stupid. They either have stupid captions or the drawings aren't good enough by my reckoning. So if you get anything from this, I hope you get some inspiration for your own work or from hints of mine. I know I'm not the greatest, and I have a lot to improve upon. Grey Poupon Poopers, what? Yeah, so nobody at work has a clue that I have such a lifestyle. Really, I have sold a couple of paintings. Coworkers joke that I will be famous someday, but I downplay that. Please note that the work I have published on my site and on those Imager links are very old. I keep getting better with practice. TLDR, schizophrenic, Tourette's, drunkard, artist at the chemist. Story 30, not sure if this counts. I'm a relatively normal college student at a top university, good job, good grades, varsity athlete. The works I'm also involved in the BDSM lifestyle, and as often as I can, enjoy getting tied up, spanked, and by people Eve met on the internet. Story 31, when I was a kid, I used to kill giants and sell their bones on evenings and weekends. Then I'd go to school during the day and pretend I didn't play RuneScape all the time. Story 32, I was born into it. I was born to a couple of parent imposters who made me work for them, do their laundry, clean their bathroom, kitchen, etc., give them massages while they hit me, verbally berated me, and molested me. I'd go to school and seem like just another student. I was yelled at and criticized by teachers for being apathetic. I used to look at the other kids passing by me in the hall and think, you are so lucky. You don't even know the people who are making my life a living exist. You're free. It was very weird to go to school and feel so different. Always feel on the outside. They get to laugh and have friends, to feel safe. And I have my secret. My secret is I'm treated like human garbage, and I don't know why. Story 33, life. One, pretty typical college student. Classes, problem sets, going out with friends on the weekends. Life 2, total authority over what treatments were allowed for a genetically ill and improperly classified as mentally ill patient at an institute specializing in highly secretive, questionably legal experimental medicine, who were very interested in doing research on my ward. That was one of the most emotionally draining and jading periods of my life. Story 34, I did to save enough money to live off of while in med school. Year 2 of school, I'm still happy with my decision because I saved enough money that I don't need to worry about bills necessaries. Story 35, about a year ago, I met a man while separated from my husband. If needed, we will just identify him as J and husband as K, J, and I hit it off like neither of us saw this coming. It was like nothing either of us had ever felt, cliche as it sounds. Every moment spent together, it started as the best of our lives. There were no boundaries. We quickly learned that we were each other's perfect partner. Nothing was off limits. We quickly escalated from just fun, hot into the deeper things. I was the first woman who could take his well-endowedness up the and not cry. We played with BDSM. I loved the bruises he left. He asked if I would peg him. I surprised him after a business trip with our first strap-on and loved bending him over and plowing him. As you can imagine, what started as quickly escalated. The first time it hit us was watching the sunset from atop a mountain and watch as the stars came out. We had everything. We wanted nothing more than to spend all our time together. On the days I was not with him, I was slowly piecing my marriage back together with Kay, allowing myself to fall in love with him, to be his good wife. I loved being married and taking care of this man. I loved making him smile and happy. Falling asleep in his arms was the best feeling ever. I continued this for over a year. Jane never knew that I had not left Kay. Never divorced. Kay never knew I was sleeping with Jay. I was able to effectively love 2 men at once, to have a good, strong marriage and vanilla life to anyone looking in, and have a whole other relationship. No, it wasn't always easy. I had to remind myself that there would never be more between Jay and I, no matter how much I wanted it. It ended. I loved every moment. I will never do it again. For a few months from December 2013 till April 2014, I lived a double life. I'd go to my job as a waitress during the day, but when I went home, I was really going to the local homeless shelter because I had no place to live. I was kicked out of where I was living, and because of a prior drug habit, my family still didn't trust me enough to let me live in their home, so I was homeless. I had to get online at 6:30 every day to make sure I got to bed. I was basically living with 100 other homeless people each night. It was a weird juxtaposition each day. I'd go to work and be a part of normal life, then leave and be surrounded by drug addicts, parolees, and people just down on their luck. But I had to learn to watch my stuff like a hawk and be very careful who I associated with. Don't get me wrong, some homeless are just average people at a bad point in their life, but a lot are content to live that life of each day so they can continue doing what they do. I'm just happy to say that I'm in my own place now and can tell coworkers where I live and not lie. Story 36. Don't we all have multiple lives? I mean, I doubt a single person among my family and friends knows about my interests or how much of I can be via online comments. Everyone I know thinks I have no interest in dating while I'm desperately trying to woo a girl. That the right word, woo. My friends, any family think I'm just a regular bodyguard. I am 64 and about 400 pounds the last time I checked. My job started out fairly normal, but the lawyer I work for became deeply involved in a $100 million drug dealing ring. He and his associated are constantly under threat of being killed or arrested. I have personally moved $80 million in cash when one of our dealers was on the run from the law. Eventually, my boss sold me out to the dealer whose money I moved and disappeared. The dealer was trying to kill everyone who could tie him to drugs or money, and that included me. He murdered my good friend and coworker, as well as his own partner of 2 years. The DEA is chasing him, and they are currently protecting me. I have been in a safe house for over 2 years now. I can't use my phone because they are tracking it, and the DEA agents who put me here have not returned. I have only recently started using a laptop that was left in the apartment. I took about $400,000 in cash when I moved the $80 million, so I'm having 4 or 5 meals delivered every day, but I have not been outside in over 2 years now. Hopefully those 2 agents will return any day now to update me on the situation. Story 37. Not sure if this really counts as a double life, but throughout high school, I did serious in a mail to raise money. Had a pretty shitty relationship with my parents, and eventually moved to online school to balance it out more. Started out as a webcam show here, and there as a horny 13-year-old, and practically turned into a business. The stuff I did in person raked in some serious cash. I quit a year back because it utterly destroyed my self-esteem, and I've spiraled in and out of depression and alcoholism since I was 15, 19 now. But on the other hand, I'm a 19-year-old who can afford to attend a top 75 college in the U.S. without federal aid or parent aid, and with fairly minimal loans. Story 38. I have really bad depression when I am alone and have constant suicidal thoughts. Once I am with someone, I am outgoing, and I make the group of people laugh. I really hate it sometimes, and I wish I could tell everyone, but I have much on my plate. I just moved out and university starts in a couple weeks, and I feel like I have no time to deal with my depression. I try and give myself false hopes like, hey, one day I may get onto the set of God, or maybe one day it'll make a groundbreaking film. I know it sounds completely stupid, but that's honestly how I deal with it. Story 39. I started posting on MySpace forums randomly in 2006 when I stumbled upon them. I didn't realize at first, but only about 200 people used the general discussion forum regularly. I became close with a lot of them, many of them living out of my state and country. When everyone left MySpace and switched to Facebook, it was too weird having them on my regular Facebook, because it appeared as though I had a lot of made-up accounts that I pretended were my friends because none of them were local, so I had a Facebook just for them. Since Facebook is terrible with privacy, it eventually suggested both of my Facebooks to all of my friends, and they saw I had 2, which was really weird as well. I eventually merged in my lives, and people were kind of weirded out when I explained that I have met a bunch of people online from MySpace, but they get over it. I have met about 20 of them in real life, have remained friends with probably 80 of them. I have internet dated 3 of them, only actually meeting one of those people in real life, someone from the country of Estonia. I know it's probably not as interesting as some of the ones on here, but it's definitely felt like a double life. Story 40. I know it's not the most shocking or dramatic double life story, but here goes. None of my friends know that I am the granddaughter and heiress to a shipping magnate. I have always lived extremely comfortably. I go to art school, where most of my friends come from middle-lower income families and have taken out substantial student loans. Sometimes I have to help my friends pay for some groceries because they just don't have enough money. I have been told explicitly by my family that I, under no circumstances, am allowed to digress my economic situation to anyone. My parents want to protect me, and they don't want my economic status to attract negative attention to myself. I hate my situation. I know the first thought that will probably come to your mind is, wow, your life must be so easy. You're rich. Well, it sucks. I'm not going to deny that I'm very fortunate and blessed and lucky, but it sucks having to pretend to be someone else 247 and lie to people on a daily basis about your family. It sucks being too embarrassed to tell people what my parents do or invite them over my house. It's isolating, and I have never felt like I have belonged. I hope I don't come across as being a whiny bratty. I just really need to get this off my chest.